Hey, what's good, guys? This is the remix. I'm Gabriel. This is my buddy Antoine.
It's popping.
So, real talk. What last year or 2 years ago, hip hop was dubbed the most streamed genre in like the world globally, like on every continent. And it makes sense because hip hop music, hip hop influence extends globally. And then I was thinking, I mean, even though you have people everywhere listening to hip hop in all communities, and whatever country, et cetera, in 2019, hip hop is still, without a doubt, no question, most definitively, a black creation. And you can say that about a bunch of other genres, but I know in 2019, hip hop is still
Yeah, I mean,
the black community.
yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about the context of the black community, like whatever we may be dealing with, good or bad, et cetera, et cetera. Even black people in the regard of politics and our place, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was thinking, well, what role does hip hop actually play in the black community? Is there any role? Should there be a role? Or I mean, because our artists like Kendrick, J. Cole, Jay-Z, I don't know, a lot of artists, come from like a very cookie cutter kind of like, life, childhood, right? Grow up in a very urban environment, probably below the poverty line. Now they're artists, and they talk about, what they lived through when they grew up.
Yeah,
So you could,
I feel like that's why it's probably more relatable to that culture.
And when you look back at it, I mean, is there another responsibility that hip hop plays? I mean, it can't just be music, right? I mean, it can't just be music. It has to be something more.
Because I think hip hop, like, I'm not gonna say different than other, because I feel like other genres are like that. Music in general is more than just music.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
but hip hop is more than, I mean, like Nipsey Hussle. I mean, yeah, he was a musician, but he was also like a light in his community, and obviously he met an untimely demise. But he was a very powerful figure in the community who gave back to the community, like on levels we probably never seen before in public.
Personally, yeah. I mean, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people, but you hear about it. You know what I'm saying? So that's like.
And there's probably a lot that you don't hear about.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, so hip hop does play a significant role in the black community, or it should play a significant role.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I think that it plays. I'm not gonna say it plays more or less than any other genre of music. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what you're going through.
Well, I'm going to disagree because I was in Germany one day and I forgot what they were playing, but they called it black music. So like to like the 18-year-old German cat or the 18-year-old guy who lived in Russia.
Right.
Coogee Rap did a concert there recently anyway, so that was kind of cool. But anyway, to the 18-year-old Russian or German or Japanese or Chinese, or to the 18-year-old kid living in Wyoming who plays hip hop for the first time, I mean, I wouldn't. They relate some of that stuff to the black community. I mean, if they don't have a significant
that's
black
not what
population.
I'm arguing. I feel like I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
wholeheartedly, I agree with that. I'm just saying I don't think that it plays a bigger. It might.
It does though. It does. I mean, because the culture influences like, I mean, if you want to compare hip hop music culture to like pop music culture, which is extremely broad, or country music.
That's
I mean,
too broad.
every genre has a culture. Okay, but I mean, hip hop culture is more than just music. It's sneakers. All right, it's clothing styles. I mean, it's different slang. You know what I'm saying?
Right. As is country. Though.
Yeah,
you can think of country almost in the same aspect.
But it's not on the level of hip hop. And if you're talking about what role does hip hop play?
As far as like impact?
Yeah, as far as sphere of influence. And if we're talking about what role does hip hop plays?
But. Yeah, but I'm just thinking of obviously like on a smaller scale.
Right, but we're not talking. On a smaller scale, sure, country is just similar. I mean, it plays a role. But we're talking about hip hop, and that plays a role on a larger scale. And if we're talking about people who might not have come from a certain lifestyle, and they just get heavily involved in hip hop, and they don't know much about black people, then the only thing that they have to fall back on is like, oh, well, you know what Jay-Z said is about Brooklyn. Brooklyn must look like that, or the Game said it's about Compton, or Kendrick said it's about Compton. Compton must look like that. Like when people think if somebody were to think of Compton, who haven't been there, they're gonna say, oh, that's
it must be hood.
Exactly, because I listened to the Game and he said that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, So I mean, if we're talking about what role does it play, well, it plays an important role because maybe artists don't understand the influence they have to people who might not necessarily be within a lifestyle or within a culture or come from these areas.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
because at the end of the day, music, you're just trying to paint a picture of your experience of life. You know what I'm saying? So whether that experience is true, whether it's exaggerated, whether it's anything, you know what I'm saying? People are open to their own perception of it. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone's gonna perceive it differently. No, they could say something to me, you know what I'm saying, and I hear it differently, you know what I'm saying, versus the next person who hasn't heard hip hop or experienced anything to do with hip hop at all might experience or perceive that in a totally different way. You
no, I hear that. No, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, but you know, if you know the state of black people domestically and even worldwide weren't, I mean, if it wasn't, I don't want to say critical. I mean,
critical.
Well, I mean, if we're just being honest, I mean, you know, we don't need to go into like why, because that's not. But I mean, if people only see a certain thing, and this is for the people who don't necessarily live in America, but they only see a certain thing on TV, and it's like, well, all black people are this or whatever. I mean, that might not impact us here, but abroad it does. And I think, you know, that kind of thinking, I think it can seep elsewhere. It can seep into different industries and, you know, and train the thought. You know, ultimately, I don't think it's directly, you know, significant, but I think indirectly, I think it does matter in the long run. You know, and I'm not going to go as far and say, oh, well, you know, that kind of negative thinking that hip hop may project to other people outside the U.S., it will have a negative economic influence. I'm not going to go as far as to say that, but I will say, you know, when I go to Ukraine and somebody says, hey, you're a rapper, right? Or, you know,
just because you
I mean, you're black, and it's fine, you know, but you know, in 2019, throughout the world, even throughout the U.S., black people only have so many platforms. Only so many platforms that, you know, kind of like, I don't want to say tell our story, but to portray black people in a certain way. There's only so many platforms, if we're being honest. So I think when you only have so many platforms, you have to be very careful about how you portray yourself.
When you say so many platforms, do you mean like so many ways to obtain?
No, I'm saying so many platforms, so many media outlets.
Because I mean, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's many ways to obtain a platform. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean,
a platform is just a platform. You know what I'm saying? It's a way to obtain.
Right.
There might be only so many avenues to obtain a platform.
Well, I'm mainly talking about the ownership part of it.
Oh, what do you mean?
Like, Google owns YouTube, right? Right.
Okay.
And maybe that was a bad example, but Viacom owns BET now, right?
I see what you're getting.
You know, like, you know, so there's only so many platforms where, you know, we can really control the narrative. I guess that's what I wanted to control the narrative, right?
Okay.
Right. So I do think in that sense, since we can only control the narratives in so many platforms, there is a responsibility of hip hop artists and hip hop to ensure, you know, that you know, we're putting out good energy, good vibes,
right.
good.
You wanna, I see
perceptions and good, you know, attitudes regarding
the way we depict in ourselves, basically.
Exactly.
Like, I see what you're saying.
That's what
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there is a role.
Yeah, no, there is a role. I mean, and that goes back to like the whole responsibility thing. You know what I'm saying of hip hop, which I was telling you, it's like, or that we came to together.
Yeah, but yeah, and we'll address that shortly. We're gonna take a break right now. That's it. It's a hard cut. It's okay. Sorry.